In March 1956, an assembly of over 200 journalists, government officials, and spectators converged at Edwards Air Force Base for the Air Force's grand reveal of the Lockheed F-104A Starfighter. While the aircraft boasted slender wings and a blistering top speed of 1,500 miles per hour, it was a peculiar, unexplained bump on the front left side of the fuselage that captured the crowd's intrigue. Months prior, an announcement from a high-ranking ordnance official had rippled through military circles, hinting at a new machine gun with a firing rate of thousands of rounds a minute. This rumor, seemingly beyond the bounds of contemporary technology, bordered on the fantastical, especially in an era where the pinnacle of weaponry barely breached the 1,000 rounds a minute mark. So when the weapon responsible for the bump, the M61 Vulcan, was finally introduced at 6,000 rounds per minute, it shocked the military world. Even more shocking was that, while this might have seemed like cutting-edge mid-century technology, the weapon was actually an iteration of a nearly 100-year-old Civil War-era gun. The end of World War II did not mean the worries for the US military had ended, and soon the country entered the Cold War with the USSR. By then, there had been a massive increase in fighter aircraft technology, including early jet models. These new aircraft were so fast that achieving an effective number of hits would be very difficult without a much higher volume of fire, thus pushing the American military to improve their offensive weaponry, and fast. In 1945, Officers Cleves Doc Powell and Melvin M. Johnson Jr. were on a work trip in Waterbury, Connecticut, to consult with a machine gun contractor having belt link problems. There, the former came up with the idea to test old Gatling guns with an external motor attached for aircraft applications. The Gatling gun, created in 1861, was a six-barreled, hand-cranked weapon conceived during the Civil War by inventor Dr. Richard Gatling, as he sought to reduce the number of armies, ergo the casualties, by combat and disease. This pioneering semi-automatic weapon had a rapid rate of fire of 200 rounds a minute, especially when compared to the muzzle-loading rifles of the time. Used first by Union forces in the Civil War and officially adopted by the North in 1866, the Gatling gun saw action in various other conflicts, including the Spanish-American War and other theaters worldwide. Throughout the years, the United States Army used Gatling guns in several calibers, with some even mounted on Navy ships. But despite its effectiveness and groundbreaking technology, it was prone to jamming, and advancements in machine guns and other technology caused it to become obsolete by 1911. Believing that the increased aircraft technology meant these machine guns could now be powered through electricity, and at the same time be much more reliable than gas reloading, Powell and Johnson proposed their idea to the Army Air Force and the United States Army's Ordnance Department Research and Development Service Small Arms Branch, led by Colonel Rene R. Studler. After much convincing, Colonel Studler permitted them to do a feasibility study of what he initially considered an outlandish idea. In late 1945, Johnson Automatics, Melvin Johnson's own company, led a small contract to do research with antique Gatling guns owned by the Ordnance Museum, conducted at a private test range in Cumberland, Rhode Island. While Johnson wanted to test one of the more modern versions of the Gatling from the turn of the century, he had to settle for a model from 1886. There were two feasibility tests, one at approximately 4,000 revolutions a minute and another at 5,500, each loaded with only 50 rounds, so the gun mechanism could build up speed before firing. Despite big clouds of smoke that erupted due to the use of the gun's original black powder ammunition, the tests were a great success, and Johnson quickly submitted his findings to the Ordnance Department, along with some recommendations for making a successful belt-fed weapon that would not jam. On January 18, 1946, under the codename Project Vulcan, the U.S. military awarded the General Electric Company a contract to develop a new Gatling gun model. The company had to race against time and construct a new weapon before the Soviets got to it. The Air Force, responsible for most of the funding, laid down the initial specifications for the gun. Top brass wanted a weapon that was easy and quick to maintain, and most importantly, highly reliable at high speeds, altitudes, and extreme temperatures. By April 1949, GE engineers had a reliable prototype that could achieve 2,500 revolutions a minute. Building upon this design, under Project Vulcan, General Electric created the M61 Vulcan, a six-barrel hydraulically operated electric Gatling gun that could spit out fire against jet-powered enemy aircraft using high-explosive 15 or 20mm ammunition. The weapon had an effective range of nearly 2,000 feet, firing thousands of rounds as the barrel cluster rotated. The key to this is the 6 electrically driven barrels. allowing for the high-speed cyclic rate, helping keep the barrels from overheating and increasing multi-hit probabilities compared to a single barrel. Not only was the model capable of firing 100 rounds a second, equaling 6,000 a minute, but it was also remarkably reliable, jamming or failing only once every 10,000. Due to this never-before-seen rate of fire, managing this ammunition use effectively was another issue. Given the limited capacity for carrying ammunition on aircraft equipped with the M61, pilots required a method to regulate its consumption. General Electric addressed this by integrating a burst controller into the weapon system. After completing trials, GE got a contract to begin pilot gun production at their New York State plant in 1954. With this, the Vulcan was ready. In late spring 1956, during a meeting of the Aero Club in Washington, head of Air Force Armaments Development, Lieutenant General Donald L. Putt, made a speech, hinting that the standard aircraft machine guns of the branch, capable of 850 to 1,700 revolutions a minute, would soon be replaced by a state-of-the-art 20mm gun that would revolutionize the world, achieving almost 7,000. While skeptics were quick to distrust, rumors about this new supergun began to spread in militaries worldwide. The M61 Vulcan was first shown to the public in 1956, when the supersonic F-104 Starfighter interceptor was first introduced by the newly formed United States Air Force at Aberdeen Proving Ground. When pictures of the massive weapon mounted on the aircraft were spotted, national and international analysts demanded more information. The desire for further information became so intense that not long after the fighter's flight, the Pentagon had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. The United States had officially brought back the Gatling gun, now more advanced and effective than ever. While work began on the Vulcan back in the 1940s, the rotary cannon didn't see aerial combat until early April 1965, when in Vietnam, 4 North Vietnamese Air Force MiG-17s attacked a force of 10 North American F-100 Super Sabres, escorting 48 Vulcan-armed and bomb-laden F-105 Thunder Chiefs. The encounter resulted in a confusing melee, although no American pilot downed an enemy. The first official Vulcan gun kill happened a year later, when on June 28, 1966, Major Fred Tracy fired 200 20mm rounds from his F-105 Thunder Chief into a MiG-17. In the remainder of the war, U.S. fighters scored nearly 40 victories with the M61 gun. By then, these weapons were being added to more and more aircraft, like the McDonnell Douglas F-4E Phantom IIs, Lockheed AC-130s, and General Dynamics F-111 Aardvarks, among other aircraft, with some of these new fighters having the M61 Vulcan installed internally. The M61A2, an improved and much lighter Vulcan, was adopted by the Army in 1983, seeing action in Desert Storm, and was replaced by the M61A3 at the turn of the century. The U.S. military is still using this model in Afghanistan. The U.S. has also provided the M61 to over a dozen of its allies, such as South Korea and Saudi Arabia. Beyond the skies, the model has also revolutionized naval warfare. In the late 1960s, as the M61 Vulcan flew all over Vietnam, a new threat emerged to trouble the United States Navy: anti-ship cruise missiles. Until this point, the primary concern of the branch's defensive strategy was manned attacks using fighters, bombers, and submarines. Still, these new tiny high-speed anti-ship cruise missiles flew lower and much faster than any aircraft, capable of sinking large armored ships with a single impact. Additionally, they could be deployed by smaller countries or radical independent forces, posing a new challenge for America. For this, General Dynamics took the Vulcan's 20mm rotary cannon to develop an automated, self-contained system capable of identifying enemy threats at closer ranges and shooting them out of the sky with a hail of bullets. This system, called the Phalanx Sea-Wiz, or Close-In Weapon System, is a rapid-fire, computer-controlled, radar-guided gun that has since become an essential part of naval defense. The Sea-Wiz has proven so effective that it's also used for counter-rocket, mortar, and artillery defense, as it's capable of shooting incoming 155mm artillery shells, rockets, and even mortars out of the sky. Rooted in a 19th century innovation, and now a 21st century necessity, the M61 Vulcan and all its derivatives continue to be pivotal in the defense strategies of the United States and its allies.